Hey guys, today I wanted to talk a little bit about my developer story. Now, I'm kind of on doing a little bit of a lunch break, but I thought that it'd be a good idea in order to kind of get this out here. Starting my YouTube channel, and I started actually a little bit of it, posting a few videos up there, and just kind of thinking about what directions to go. And I thought that this would be a really good start. Unlike a lot of people I know who have actually just started doing development, I've been on and off developing since about 2003. 2002, 2003, I was actually in a youth program in Philadelphia called Youth Empowerment Services. And it taught me the basics of HTML, CSS, JavaScript. But I also learned a language that probably none of you have even heard about called ActionScript, which is the primary language used in Flash, Adobe Flash. It was called Macromedia back then. And when I went from there, I went to ITT Technical Institute. They've long since gone, and I've got so much debt from them. But after I went to ITT, about a semester before I graduated, I wound up getting a job at a company that was actually in King of Prussia. They mostly had proprietary software, and I was actually there for about 3 years. They actually came down to the school and actually had a contract, so I actually lucked out and wound up getting my first developer job. Since we were supposed to be kind of our titles were assemblers, which were pretty much the grunts. We pretty much built the interfaces with their proprietary software. We did a little bit of C sharp there, at least from what I can remember, and I remember doing some web work for them, mostly in ActionScript at the time. But after about 3 years there, um, we wound up parting ways. Mostly because towards the end of it, there was really no growth, and I knew that it was actually my time to go. You know. From there, after about 3 years there, I was freelancing for a little bit, and I had to pick up jobs at a bank, at PNC Bank, and at another IT company. I was actually working both jobs at the same time, trying to figure my way out, trying to get back into the industry while doing some freelancing work. Um, I wound up leaving PNC to work full time at the IT company, but that IT company couldn't really pay me, so they wound up letting me go. They wound up letting me go at the beginning of that year. So I think that was 2000, about 8 or 9 at the time. For about a year, I was doing kind of odd jobs and freelancing, and even worked overnight at Walmart while I was trying to do freelancing and trying to just get better at JavaScript overall. Um, after a while, and about, I believe it was 2011, a really good friend of mine reached out to me and said, it was like, hey, we need a programmer, and I'm starting or creating a new position at my company. It was called NCO Financial. And I was like, yeah, of course. Actually, at first, I was thinking that I was out of the industry so long. I was out of it for about a year and a half, maybe between a year and a half to 2 years, that I didn't think that I could get the job. But he interviewed me, and I nervously wrote out a little function on the paper, on the board, because he was trying to see if I actually knew how to program. And he hired me on, and I was actually there from 3 years, from about 2011 to 2014. That was an interesting company because my friend, it wasn't necessarily development, but it was more more proprietary. I did mostly VXML work. That's voice XML. We work actually on the dialers. Like when you get those robocalls that wind up calling you because you owe something on your bill. I'm not the guy that called. I was the guy that wrote the programs that would call you. But unfortunately, after about 3 years, that they were starting to carve that company up like a Thanksgiving turkey, to be honest. And most of the people were starting to be wound up being laid off. Since when I got hired, I was in a specific type of position. They kind of looked over me, but I wound up letting a lot of the other people go. So I was definitely blessed at almost the last moment before they were about to sell the company. I wound up getting another company at going to another company at GP Strategies, and that was actually a lot of fun. GP Strategies does e-learnings, and all the people there were phenomenal. It came at the right time. Actually, that with that company, I was just actually newly married, had a new car, and a new baby on the way. So that company came in clutch. There I learned mostly about articulate storyline and did more WordPress, because I did WordPress at the last company, and a little PHP work, and I did a little bit more there, dealing with staging servers, production servers, and different things like that. And learned a lot about ActionScript and HTML, CSS, and JavaScript there. It was actually the first time I was exposed to Angular there too, but for some reason I didn't really like Angular at the time. It was definitely a learning experience. I actually got so really comfortable and bold that I actually tried to start my own a few companies, my own freelancing company, and I was also doing some marketing as well. But about 2016, they all unfortunately started to all fall apart. I was doing too much with a new baby, and the stress just got to me, and I wound up going through a little bouts of depression, which I had to step away from that job in order to really take care of that. So for about a year, I was unemployed. This is about 2017 or so. And I actually ran into codingphase.com. I ran into some other people around the same time, Traversing Media, Brad from Traversing Media, Colt Steele. But the one that actually, really resonated with me was Joe from Coding Phase. And he kept he talked about the industry, and he really talked about how you can get far in it. And I was like, you know what? Let me give it another shot. I don't want to be, working out in, department stores and everything like that for the rest of my life. I did have a background in it. So I went through his HTML, CSS, his JavaScript course, which was pretty thorough. Then I went through his Hyper App and his React course, and it was a good thing that I did go through that. Because I wound up interviewing at the company that I am now, that if it wasn't for taking that React course, I probably wouldn't be here, would have gotten that job. Because around the time I was interviewing at the company I'm at now, I actually was working overnight at Whole Foods, which is backbreaking labor. That was the second time in my life I worked overnight, and when you have a small child and you're working overnight, you coming back home and they're getting up, they're not even in school yet. It's a lot. It's a lot of work. Um, so I wound up doing was, okay. They wound up bringing me on full time here, and it's really kind of funny because you have to be. It's really interesting when you look at. Um, it's really interesting when you start certain jobs. I mean, I knew React, I knew Node, mostly because of Joe. Thanks, Joe. From coding phase, React and Node and jQuery and HyperApp, but it was actually more of a PHP and WordPress job. And I wound up still working overnight at Whole Foods and working with my current company. And it was backbreaking labor. I was working probably 70 to 80 hours a week. But the main reason why I did that is because you kind of never know 100% when you get a job that you'll actually be able to keep it. So I wound up still working overnight to catch up on bills, to bring things to current, because we were at one point, we were in between where you could either, like, we were just waiting, either Toyota was going to take our car or the city was going to take our car because we couldn't pay the insurance, we couldn't pay the tickets that were on the car. So I was definitely thankful so much that started working at the company I'm now. And since then, I mean, I've left Whole Foods. I'm thankful for them, but I had to leave them. That was some backbreaking labor. I tell you that much. And I'm so thankful that it's been now about a year and a half since I started working at my current company. Well, that's the short version of my developer story. And to be honest, I'm so thankful for the period of time that we're living in. It's not easy becoming a developer, because there are some pitfalls that you can run into. There are some things in which you learn that you might be too old, not to learn, but the technologies wind up being either archaic, or is that just no one's looking for them. I didn't know that my choice in picking, let's say, ActionScript over JavaScript or PHP was going to hurt, because not a lot of people today are looking for ActionScript developers. And just to anyone out here that's listening to this, stay encouraged and keep trucking away at it. Also, don't listen to the people that say that certain languages are dead. Like PHP is definitely not dead. There's a lot of Drupal and WordPress type of jobs that are actually enterprise that you can get paid a lot for. While everybody else, although React.js is probably my favorite of all the frameworks. It wasn't the first one, because I learned HyperApp and Angular HyperApp, Angular, and jQuery UI first. But it was definitely my favorite one because of the component, being able to utilize the components and the component structure, and kind of being able to customize your app to the way that you want it to. But don't focus on the stuff that everybody else is. Keep an eye on it. But if you're really looking for a job and you're looking for a job quick, focus on do things like PHP, Laravel, MySQL, because while everyone else is focusing on those type of jobs, React, they want to be a React developer, a Node developer, and they want to be a Vue developer, a Python developer. Now, there's nothing wrong with those things, but the jobs that are easier or simpler, really, to get into are the ones that are for PHP. They're the ones that people are talking bad about, and the fact that people are paying higher salaries for those technologies that people call archaic. To be honest, I hear a lot about don't learn jQuery and don't learn PHP, and I wound up finding a job in PHP and in jQuery and in WordPress. As a matter of fact, in the next few days, I'm going to be interviewing for another PHP job, but it's going to be WordPress and Drupal again, and we'll see how that goes. I only even accepted the position. I mean, well, rather not the position, but the interview, because the recruiter was actually really persistent. I mean, he called me, he emailed me, LinkedIn me, and left me a text and voice message. I was like, okay, I might as well give him a try. But I mean, we'll see. There's nothing wrong with the conversation, and if you can land something to help your family, but definitely, by all means. And I guess lastly, do the things that will get you the money. Do the things you love, but you gotta eat. Do the things you love, but you gotta eat. Set it up so that you and your family can eat. And once you are secure in your profession or what you're doing, you're making a livable income, then do the things you love. All right? Y'all have a good one.